Blood DK Alpha Deathbringer.
Deathbringer! Yeah, the Deathbringer! I bring death to the people!
Legends, what's up? Let's talk Deathbringer hero talents on the Blood DK in the War Within. Now, this video has been made in collaboration with the WoW head guide writer for Blood DK's Mandel, who praised this tree in its early iteration and credited the design and the development on the tree from a functional gameplay aspect, which sounds promising, right? Right? So let's talk about it. So the simple version of this tree and its gameplay. Reaper's Mark is a 12-second effective snapshot window for shadow and frost damage. The goal in this 12-second window is to land as many damaging events as you possibly can. After that 12 seconds, or when you reach 40 stacks, the mark will explode, dealing damage per stack built. So there's a bit to optimize in getting the most out of this, and we'll talk about that shortly, but first, let's go through the talents in the hero tree. So Reaper's Mark. Slice the soul of your enemy dealing shadow frost damage and apply Reaper's Mark. Each time you deal shadow or frost damage, add a stack of Reaper's Mark. After 12 seconds or reaching 40 stacks, the mark will explode, dealing damage per stack. Reaper's Mark travels to an unmarked enemy nearby if the target dies or explodes below 35% health when there are no enemies to travel to. This explosion cannot occur again on the target for 3 minutes. Wave of Souls. Reaper's Mark unleashes a wave forwards and back, dealing shadow frost damage. Wave of Souls critical strikes cause enemies to take 5% increased shadow frost damage for 15 seconds, stacking up to 2 times, and the wave back is always a critical strike. Blood Fever. Your Blood Plague has a chance to deal 30% increased damage as shadow frost. Bind in Darkness. Shadow frost damage applies 2 stacks of Reaper's Mark and 4 stacks when a critical strike. Blood Boil deals shadow frost damage. Soul Rupture. Reaper's Mark's explosion causes a piece of the target's soul to tear out and spiral outwards, dealing 20% of the explosion's damage to enemies it passes through. Enemies that are hit by this effect deal 5% reduced physical damage to you for 10 seconds. Grim Reaper. So Reaper's Mark explosion deals up to 30% increased damage based on your target's missing health, and also applies Soul Reaper to targets below 35% health. Your first choice node here is Death Bargain versus Rune Carved Plates. So Death Bargain, when you suffer a damaging effect equal to 25% of your max HP, you instantly cast Death Pack at 50% effectiveness. When Reaper's Mark explodes, the cooldown of this effect and Death Pack are reduced by 5 seconds. Meh. Rune Carved Plates. Each rune spent reduces the magic damage you take by 2%, and each rune generated reduces the physical damage you take by 2% for 5 seconds, stacking up to 5 times. Cha-ching!
Yeah, we like that.
Another choice node, Swift End and Painful Death. Reaper's Mark cost is reduced by 1 rune and its cooldown is reduced by 50%. Painful Death Exterminate empowers an additional Marrow Rend, but now reduces its cost by 1 rune, and its first scythe has a 50% chance to apply Reaper's Mark. Another choice node, Dark Talons and Wither Away. Dark Talons, Marrow Rend and Heartstrike have a 25% chance to increase the max stacks of an active Icy Talons by 1 up to 2 times, and whilst Icy Talons is active, your abilities that spend runic power deal shadow frost damage. Wither Away, so Blood Plague deals its damage in half the duration, and the second scythe of Exterminate will apply Blood Plague. Your last choice node here, Death's Messenger and Expelling Shield. So Death's Messenger reduces the cooldown on Lichborn and Raised Dead by 30 seconds, and Expelling Shield, when an enemy deals direct damage to your AMS, their cast speed is reduced by 10% for 6 seconds, which is going to be pretty giga in Caster M+ dungeons. And the capstone trait Exterminate. After Reaper's Mark explodes, your next Marrow Rend costs no rune and summons 2 scythes to strike your enemy. The first scythe strikes your enemy for shadow frost damage and has a 20% chance to apply Reaper's Mark. the second Scythe strikes all enemies around your target for Shadow Frost damage. So let's talk about some levers and gameplay functions that build off this hero talent system. You start your journey into Deathbringer with a single ability that continues to build and develop as you put points into this hero tree. Big tick straight off the bat. This tree rewards you for executing your rotation well and is actually, just in general, a very rewarding hero talent structure. This is where Deathbringer absolutely excels and hits the mark when you compare it to San'layn. During your 12 seconds, once you hit that Reaper's mark, you've got a number of abilities you can use at your disposal to generate stacks. These are all documented in Mandel's Wowhead guide, so if you prefer a written version of that, that's linked in the description, but we'll cover them off here as well. So you're going to be able to sync up Tombstone with this 100% of the time for a total of 1 stack. Blood Boil is going to grant you 1 stack per cast, 2 stacks if you have Bind in Darkness selected, and at its base recharge rate of 7.5 seconds before haste, this means with proper timing and a smidge of optimization, this can net you a minimum of 2 stacks in that window. This also provides us with a haste breakpoint. At around 20% base haste, your Blood Boil's recharge duration will reduce to below 5.5 seconds, meaning that you can actually fit 3 Blood Boils in a single Reaper's mark, meaning more stacks. You also have a chance to proc 4 stacks from a critical strike Blood Boil via Bind in Darkness. The periodic ticks from Death and Decay and Blood Plague will also contribute to stacks, up to 14 stacks from Death and Decay and up to 5 stacks from Blood Plague with Wither Away. Every 2 minutes, if you're talented into Abomination Limb, this will grant you 13 stacks. And finally, every tick of Shattering Bone from losing Bone Shield charges will contribute 2 stacks. Now this was going to be a really interesting one for me on Alpha, and I'm really sad it doesn't look like it's going to work out. But Bone Storm will also reward you with a stack per tick. However, it is so easy to achieve 40 stacks outside of cooldowns just by executing your rotation. There is no real case to be made for sinking a talent point into Bone Storm, which is a real bummer. I really had hopes that this hero tree would kind of revive Bone Storm and bring some new life into it, that Deathbringer thematic kind of will. But at the moment, I just can't see any reason to sell a point into Bone Storm, which is a huge bummer. Now, all of these sources of shadow damage are not targeted or single target, and as a result, no matter which target you decide to mark or where the mark jumps, if your marked target dies, you will still be able to comfortably generate stacks without having to care too much about which target specifically has the mark, which is a huge bonus. This tree is a real winner. Deathbringer is this damage focused, well thought out, build and develop tree. You build your stacks through Reaper's Mark in your 12-second window via good rotational gameplay, and then you get rewarded with big numbers. Like, that's a win! But San'layn exists, which is permanent heroism, and why would you play anything else? We need a reason. So the issue we now face as Blood DKs, as I outlined in the San'layn video, which if you haven't watched, go and watch it. And as Mandel mentioned in both his guides on Wowhead, is who will play Deathbringer when San'layn is the equivalent of permanent lust. And when you have lust, it's like 95% haste. It is absolute bonkers. And that is a real shame because Deathbringer hits such a good thematic point in the spec. It develops through the course of the tree. It rewards good form of play. It's got a whole bunch of passives that just feed into that. And all in all, it's a really well thought out and designed tree. Now, the other thing I love about Deathbringer is that you don't get locked into certain talent traits to play with that hero system, much like we see in San'layn, where you are forced into improved vampiric blood, you're forced down foul bulwark pathway, you're forced into 2 of 2 points of red thirst. You have no freedom. The only 2 points that you can play around with in that tree at the moment is Hemo and Ossuary, and I'd hardly call that exciting. Deathbringer, however, is such a well-constructed hero talent system where it feeds and develops off each line that you actually have a lot more freedom in your talent point choices. And I think that is fantastic for any future reworks or changes that we might see coming through the War Within. And that's where I think this balance option has to be addressed between the two of them, because it would be a real shame to have a talent system designed like Deathbringer sit on the floor next to San'layn just due to the fact that it is basically perma-lust. Now, a couple of options and ideas around fixing San'layn. When I went to Mandal, I was like, how would you fix this? Like, what is the balancing act that you're going to have to do between these two hero systems? And one of the ideas thrown out was linking it to Lichborn. Now, if you link it to Lichborn, your super vampire window is going to be far smaller than we see on Vampiric Blood, just due to having no talents that really feed into reducing Lichborn. You could make the Icebound Fortitude reduction hero talent reduce Lichborn instead to give you a little bit more uptime, but freedom straight away into the talent space if it gets linked to Lichborn. And then you could start to optimize some of your routes and playstyles around that, oh my god, superpowered vampire window, and you get a little bit more thematic essence coming into San'layn than the current degenerative cycle loop that we have at the moment. It is going to be really interesting to see how they tackle. You have two extremely different trees, one functioning around solid rewards from gameplay where you can panic and try and dump as many abilities or events into trying to build those 40 stacks, and you can really murder your gameplay loop as a result, or you can get rewarded for playing well. And then on the other side you have San'layn, which is just that really fast-paced degenerative spam, which from vocal majority of the Blood DK community has generally not been received very well, so it kind of seems interesting to further iterate on it in the War Within, but we shall see. That is it for the moment anyway. I'll keep you updated. If you got any questions, hit me up in the comments below. Otherwise, thanks so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you all next time.
I'll see you all next time. 'Cause I'm a Deathbringer. I got so much death. I got death falling out my pockets.
From a functional gameplay point,
Fuck you up with my death bringing!